Welcome, scholars, to Chapter 8, Aquatic Biodiversity. This week we're going to be talking about every type of aquatic ecosystem you could possibly think of, all the way from the coastal areas of North Carolina to the rivers, the small streams of the mountains of North Carolina and around the world. So we're going to talk about aquatic biodiversity with this week. Your core case study talks about coral reefs, and why should we even care about coral reefs? Well, thinking back to chapter 14 about natural disasters, coral reefs did provide some protection against tsunamis and coastal erosion. So that's one good thing about them. They also have many different types of species, which includes why they're important with biodiversity. They take a very long time to form, and because they hold they're a biodiversity hotspot as far as organisms go, we value them greatly for the amount of things that we can get from them as well as leave them intact. Important ecological and economic services. The ecological services was that they moderate atmospheric temperatures, which helps with global warming. They again act as natural barriers, protecting coasts from erosion, like we talked about in chapter 14 in tsunamis. They provide habitats for all those different types of species that live there. And as far as the economic services go, they support fishing and tourism, huge tourism around coral reefs, with scuba diving, snorkeling, even the things that we extract from coral reefs. It allows us to provide jobs, building materials, and also just to be studied and enjoyed by people. So that's a couple of the reasons why we should care about coral reefs, and there's many more that I'm sure you'll explore throughout this chapter. Now, other reasons that have really degraded coral reefs are the coastal development. As we build along the coast, we have much more of an impact on those coastal habitats, such as the coral reef, through pollution, overfishing, and then even going kind of large scale with global warming. The warmer the ocean temperature gets, that leads to what we call coral bleaching, or the dying of corals, which then creates a catastrophe for that ecosystem. It also increases ocean acidity as we are there, and we're doing some things to increase ocean acidity, which then even kind of goes towards a positive feedback loop, kind of pushing the degradation of more and more coral reefs. So that's what we're looking at with coral reefs. Again, we'll explore more about them throughout this chapter. So take a look at 8.1. What is general nature of aquatic ecosystems? We're just going to kind of general overview of this stuff. And obviously we have most of the Earth is covered in water. We have 4 major oceans: the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Arctic, and the Indian. And some people split up the Arctic into Antarctic and Arctic. And then we also have freshwater ecosystems. Well, today we're going to talk about some saltwater, and eventually we'll get to freshwater. The aquatic life zones. There are the saltwater or the marine habitats, which include oceans, estuaries, coastlands and shorelines, coral reefs, and even mangrove forests. We also have freshwater ecosystems like lakes, rivers and streams, and inland wetlands. And so those are the different habitats we'll explore throughout this unit. We are mostly called an ocean planet because most of our Earth is covered in water. We even kind of split up into hemispheres: the oceanic hemisphere, which you can see over here, which includes Hawaii and Australia. And then we have our land/ocean hemisphere, which has kind of a mixture of both. And this just kind of shows you the distribution of the world's major saltwater and freshwater sources, as well as highlighting those mangrove forests and coral reefs, very unique habitats that are a part of the marine habitats. And mangroves obviously located along most of the coastlines near the equator, if you look at that, and also the coral reefs as well, kind of off the coast a little bit. Most of the aquatic species live on the top or the middle or the bottom layers of water. If they are called plankton, which means they are kind of moved by, very minuscule amount of movement, mostly moved by currents. That's the phytoplankton, which basically take light energy and turn it into chemical energy. The zooplankton, which will then eat and feed on the phytoplankton. Even ultraplankton, which are very small organisms that kind of move throughout, maybe have small amounts of movement. Nekton are organisms that use the currents as well as can move kind of freely, and then the benthos or benthic organisms are ones that usually tend to live near the bottom of the water column, and then the decomposers usually are all the way at the bottom, maybe even in the sediment, helping to break down the things that have died and fallen to the bottom. Most aquatic ecosystems, again, going back to this, some key factors in the distribution of where organisms are found is temperature. dissolved oxygen content, which most organisms have to have water to survive, or oxygen to survive, availability of food, and then amount of light and nutrients needed for photosynthesis, whether it's euphotic or what we call the photic zone. That's that top layer where the sun is actually reaching through. And that's the intro to chapter 8, and we'll conclude later.